All right,
Cool.
George. First of all, pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with all three of us and talk about what's coming up in the war within. First and foremost, though, could you please introduce yourself, just so everybody out there knows who you are and what you do there at Blizzard?
Yeah, hello. My name is George Velev. I'm the combat producer working on the World of Warcraft team. I primarily produce content for combat design, so things like PvP, obviously, classes, tuning, things of that nature. Do want to call out though that I'm a producer. I'm not a designer. My goal as producer is to sort of guide, facilitate, and ensure content is shipped. I do have the privilege of working with a lot of talented designers, engineers, artists, all who work on PvP content. And I produce PvP content in Shadowlands. So I'm sort of aware how things are built and how things are sort of made. But fundamentally, I'm the producer for the team. I'm not a designer of any sort.
Awesome. If you don't mind, just to iterate on something, is were you doing something before his production on another platform or another game before you came over to Blizzard, or is this your like you jumped in there and took the Shadowlands by the horns?
I like that saying. I was on the World of Warcraft QA team before, and then
Oh,
I
awesome.
got my first production gig working at Shadowlands. Yeah, at Shadowlands, on
Excellent.
Shadowlands.
Oh, shut up. Well, and here we are now. Dragonflight is just in the sunset. We're looking at the war within, and as you said, and you talked in a number of other interviews. There's the new battleground coming in, right? The Deephaul Ravine. So it's been spoken of as, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like a mixture of Arathi Basin with Silver Shard mines. Is that kind of how I heard it?
I would say it's more like Eye of the Storm in Silver Shard Mines, but pretty similar. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because either storm you have the obviously you have your towers, so that's
hmm
King of the Hill. Plus you have the flag in the middle, which has to capture the flag to get your extra points and whatnot. Uh, how how are the points actually working though for this? Because I saw it has carts moving, which always have the circle. So I guess that's your King of the Hill idea, where if you stand inside the circle, you gain points or resources. Is that correct, or is this just a as long as you capture at the end of the capture point for the cart?
It might be simpler if I walk you through sort of, I know there hasn't been a really big opportunity to see the battleground yet, so maybe I
Yeah,
can
no.
walk you through how it sort of works. So yeah, like you mentioned, there are carts. The way it works is both sides spawn on opposite sides of the battleground, both factions. And right when you sort of jump in the battleground, there's a cart right in front of you. You can sort of convert it to your faction and take it all the way to then the cart trail. The other side does the exact same thing. Halfway through, they sort of like collide and they collide at the end as well. So there's a lot of opportunities for like combat there.
Mhm.
But like you mentioned, when you control a cart, you get trickle points over time, and when you cap the cart, you get a lump of points as well. In terms of how it's sort of similar to Eye of the Storm, at the very middle of the battleground, there is a flag, or it's sort of more like a gemstone cluster, and you can take that flag and basically cap it at 2 points in the map. They're sort of when you jump into the battleground, if you make a right, that's where the cart starts, and if you make a left, that's sort of where one of the cap locations is. And you can
Okay.
take that flag and take it all the way up the hill to the cap location to get, more points. Sort of different. You don't really own the capture points. Anyone can cap it anywhere. So even if I started on, let's say, the east side of Deephaul Ravine, I could take the gemstone flag all the way to the west side and cap it there as well.
Okay. Oh, neat. Okay, so definitely have you have two places where you can capture it. And then I'm assuming you could also take over the other cart as well. So
Mhm.
if you really wanted to dominate, you could really have your team owning two carts and capping all that at the same time. Um, so similar to Eye of the Storm, though, obviously owning towers is important. Getting those resources is important. The more resource, I don't want to go the whole nuances of that, but the capturing of the flag is definitely a bonus. Is the capturing of the gemstone just as lucrative, or is it like I'm just kind of what are the points balances here? What are we looking at?
Right, right. From a numbers perspective, you need 1,500 points to win the battleground. Capturing the gem, all this to say is all these numbers are things that we're tweaking quite a bit. We tweaked them as early as like last week in preparation for public alpha. So a lot of this is stuff that will be adjusted over time. Currently, capturing the flag or the gemstone is 150, and uh, owning a minecart as it sort of gets capped is 100. So fundamentally, yes, the flag is the most sort of lucrative as of right now, although we still want to make all three objectives, the two minecarts and the flag, roughly equal in terms of priority, because the flag won't always be up. course.
Okay, I like it. I like it. And looking at the videos and the pictures, it looks like there's a Z axis. So look, there's some things that there's some upper head terrain. You can definitely have like that higher ground advantage. Um, is that actually like can you actually get up there and do you actually have like a Z axis where you can really mess with players, or is that just for looks and you're kind of stuck within this funneled zone?
No, there's a ton of high ground gameplay, which is super exciting. So as I mentioned, those two cap locations where you can take the flag back, they're on hills, so you need to go up.
Mhm.
The end locations for each card have hills nested towards them as well. So if you're playing like, a ranged DPS, like a hunter or a mage, you can sort of like snipe on the enemy from above as they're trying to sort of control the card near the end.
Okay.
I guess the most exciting thing, in my opinion, for the battleground, though, is at the very top, connecting the two bases, there is this very long, like, minecart track, and it has
Yeah.
something that we're calling the cart vehicle, which is super not final, but it's essentially a vehicle that you can take that lets you basically travel from one end of the battleground to the other one, probably over the course of like 2-3 seconds. So it allows for some like very, very fast positioning from both sides. So you could like, do ganks, or if you see someone going for the flag and you're defending your base, you can take the minecart immediately and just sort of like catch them off guard. And that's
Cool.
sort of one of the more unique parts of the battleground that I'm really excited for.
It's like zip lining across the ravine.
Yeah, exactly. But you're on a minecart because it's
That's
urban
awesome.
themed. Yeah.
I like it.
Sounds cool. Yeah.
I will say I don't think uh, a hunter really needs to get that much close to like up on a hill to get some advantage, because the hunters can actually shoot across probably the whole map if everything
Sure.
stays the same.
It's a big map. It's a big map. But yeah.
Okay. All right. I guess last but not least, graveyards. I mean, the graveyard camping is always as much as nobody likes nobody likes having it done to them, I guess I should say. Some people like doing it. Just where in the situation for situational awareness, where would those graveyards be? Or is it like right where your spawning points, or is it again off to the side somewhere?
Very close. Going back to graveyard camping, in general, we don't really sort of like to encourage that gameplay. So the graveyards that we have set out are inaccessible to players trying to sort of like jump on top of them or sort of attack from there. Um, the locations of the graveyards. So there are two at the very beginning. So there's when you start and you die eventually, hopefully not, but sometimes it happens. There's a graveyard sort of very close to where you actually start from the very beginning. There's also two graveyards sort of near to the middle, and those graveyards will update depending on the state of the battleground as well. So in total, four, two at the very beginning from both sides, and two near the middle as well.
Oh, wow. So
None of which can be camped.
Is that going to be similar to a lot of the other battlegrounds where you spawn depends on your proximity to the graveyard where you die?
That is the current thinking, yes. But all that
Okay.
stuff that we're still sort of messing around on our end, seeing what makes most sense.
Okay. I can kind of see it being like Twin Peaks then, where if like you die far the farthest end of the map, you spawn at the other side of the map, kind of thing, or something like that. One last question. I'm assuming this is going to be like available to all the different play modes. You got randoms, you got solo queue, dual queue technically, pre-made battlegrounds. Is the map going to be the same for every one of those battlegrounds, or is it going to be somewhat different depending on the play mode you're in?
It's going to be fundamentally it's going to be the same in terms of like how it works for content like BG Blitz. It'll have the standard, mount speed increases, faster point acquisition, but across the modes like, random BGs, RBG Blitz, and rated battlegrounds, the map will play fundamentally the same, just slightly faster on those Blitz maps.
Fair enough. And it's going to have those funkier buffs as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't like the leaf? So yeah, the leaf, berserking, cooldown reduction, all the sort of things that you're used to as power-ups are going to exist in the Deephaul Ravine as well.
Cool. All right. That was it for me about the battlegrounds. Ven or Bigmoran, either of you have any other questions about the battlegrounds, or do you want to carry on with the stuff that you wanted to ask about?
I think that covers it pretty nicely for me. At least, what about you, Will?
Yeah, it covers it for me as well.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds awesome. I had a few questions for you about some things PvP in War Within. The first one I wanted to ask you about was tier was brought back in Dragonflight. And for PvPers, we shared tier with Mythic Plus players as well as Raiders. I just wanted to ask you: is the team happy with how shared tier kind of played out, or is PvP specific tier something that maybe we can look forward to?
So for launch, we're not planning on PvP specific tier, and overall, we're really happy with how PvE tier has affected PvP gameplay. At its core, it's something that all players sort of chase, regardless of the content that they're doing, and we like that. Additionally, since it's seasonal, since the class sets are seasonal, it lets us sort of like shake up the meta every single season, due to the fact that those class sets are also part of PvP, and that's something we also enjoy. So as of right now, I'm not currently planning to do PvP tier sets for the War Within launch.
Okay, cool. And for the record, I have enjoyed the seasonal gameplay and mixing it up and stuff like that. So that's cool. Another question that I had for you was for both rated 3v3 and solo shuffle. We've gotten seasonal titles, so you have like Verdant Gladiator, Verdant Legend, for example. RBGs, and especially with solo queue RBGs coming in, is there any plans to do like seasonal specific titles for that content as well?
It's a good idea. Honestly, right now we're just focused on making RBG Blitz and the Ravine as great as it can be for launch, and we have plans to evaluate the greater PvP reward structure following launch. But right now, nothing we can really publicly share.
Okay.
That's unfortunate.
Okay. Another thing that I wanted to ask you about is the vault. So we learned that obviously the vault isn't going to have PvP rewards anymore. I think delves are going to replace it. So I just wanted to know how PvPers, if they are at all, going to be compensated for kind of losing the gear from the vault, and also how sockets are going to work, if you could reveal that.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly need to compensate folks for not having things in the Great Vault. At its core, we want to make the conquest journey faster than it was in Dragonflight, with more control over how you sort of gear your character. So working on specifics and fine details, but the general goal here is so that you sort of buy more conquest gear per week than before. The way we're sort of approaching this for now is we're going to take what you would normally get from the Great Vault and bake that into the normal conquest economy, if that makes sense. Regarding sockets, yeah, totally get the fact that you're probably going to have less sockets if we do nothing with the Great Vault removals, and we're discussing on our end the best way to handle this, but that's something we're talking about actively.
Okay, so for now, it's like if we want to get the sockets, then we have to do the delves, the raid, and Mythic Plus?
TBD on that, actually.
Okay.
Still discussing stuff like that.
Okay, cool. I had one more question. I wanted to ask, especially with solo queue rated Battlegrounds coming in, what kind of lessons the team learned for incentivizing healers. Obviously, there was a little bit of a problem with longer queue times for DPS players. So I was wondering if there's anything being done about incentivizing healers more, or what lessons that were learned from Dragonflight.
I was wondering if this will pop up. Yeah, it's a great question. Certainly a lot to talk about there. For the War Within specifically, we're re-examining the rating calculations for solo shuffle at its core. We tried a lot of stuff for solo shuffle queues. We've expanded the bounds for what matches healers are eligible for, but we definitely acknowledge that there's a lot more that we could do on our end there. In addition to examining the rating calculations for solo shuffle, we do have some new things that we're going to be trying out in the War Within, like bumping up MMR for healers in case you do see issues with their MMR. That all being said, this is definitely an ongoing conversation that we talk about a lot. Our goal really is to maintain the integrity of solo shuffle long term, and while we have some ideas that we're working on, nothing new that I can share at this point in time. I will say, how to make healers more accessible and the role of healers in PvP is something we're trying to tackle from a game-wide perspective instead of just for content modes like solo shuffle.
Okay, thank you. That's all I really had. So, Will, you got anything?
Sorry, can I just jump on that for a second? For the solo shuffle, are we going to still see in the War Within, if you have a healer against a healer and you go 3 for 3, is that still going to result in a 0 or negative MMR, or is that going to change?
Good question. And honestly, I'm not really sure, so I have to talk to the team about that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Big.
So, yeah, so you're a combat designer, so I have a combat question. So there was a major overhaul to CC durations in the middle of Dragonflight. I mean, typically longer CCs had their duration reduced, things like polymorph, fear, and so on. Some CC didn't have their CC reduced, like Cheap Shot and probably Cyclone was another one. Can we expect to see more changes to the duration of CC in the War Within? And how are you guys feeling about the role of CC and specifically maybe micro CC as an expression people tend to use to describe smaller CCs? How do you guys feel about those sort of micro disruptions in the current state of the game?
Good question. I like to call it short duration CC, but semantics. Yeah, like you mentioned, we did sort of do a CC philosophy update in 10.1, and that philosophy is sort of things that is one we're still pursuing for the War Within. When it comes to short duration CCs, like I mentioned previously, those could impact certain roles like healers quite a bit. It's something we talk about really very often on our end. But as of right now, we don't have nothing new to share there, unfortunately.
Okay. And one thing we saw a lot of at the beginning of Dragonflight was regular class tuning. I mean, there's tunings, it seemed like every single week. As someone who maintains tier lists, it was quite difficult to keep up with that. So what are the team's plans for PvP tuning passes in the War Within? Will we expect to see regular hotfixes like we saw throughout Dragonflight?
Well, I apologize for giving you a lot of work for the tier lists.
I like the tier lists, to be fair. I like doing it, so.
Tier lists are fun. Tier lists are fun. Yeah, like you mentioned, we sort of really revved up our tuning approach for Dragonflight. A lot of it was in part of due to all the new systems that we're adding, knowing that we'll have to do a lot more thorough and rigorous and constant updates. And I think players liked it quite a bit, obviously, and we like doing it. So when it comes to the War Within, we plan on sort of doing the exact same cadence, depending on how things go. Sometimes things can get delayed because of, events like AWC or MDI, and we play it by ear for what's appropriate. But generally, we like to lean on doing more regular tuning passes when possible.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, a side question. Do you guys sort of maintain maybe some internal tier list or like some concept of a tier list when you're thinking about class design?
Yeah, so I have a whiteboard out here that you can see. And what happens is every single morning I go up there and I write like nerf frost mage, and it happens. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. No, I mean we talk a lot about class balance and PvP balance quite a bit. There's no like internal tier list that we sort of own, mostly because if you look at any tier list and compare it to any other tier list, things are going to change depending on the content that you do. So no, there's no internal tier list that we handle besides my joke whiteboard that has been updated in like 2 weeks.
Okay. And then my final question is about incentives, and this one is maybe a bit more complicated, but it's pretty clear now to me that I think to all of us that a lot of players are motivated to PvP partially by the prospect of earning seasonal rewards or cosmetics, whether it be like the 1600 tier token, 1800 elite set, gladiator, and so on. But with every passing season, these numbers can have very different meanings, right? In a highly inflated season like Dragonflight Season 1, players might hit a rating benchmark that they are able to get in a following season with less inflation. I'm just wondering, has there been any discussion on potentially redesigning the rating system in WoW PvP to make seasonal progression a bit less confusing to some players?
Yeah. I know I said this quite a lot, but we do talk a lot about this as well. When it comes to like how seasons feel season to season, our goal may be kind of obvious, but our goal is to have the difficulty feel the same season over season, and there's a ton of factors that influence that, the meta or participation or tier sets or class updates or just who's playing. But our goal is to have it feel the same seasons over season. However, I can say that we are discussing some rating threshold adjustments for rated rewards with the goal of making them a bit more accessible. Can't really share specifics in terms of like what's moving where, but we are actively discussing moving some stuff around. That being said, we're going to keep the prestigious stuff prestigious. Gladiator mounts will still be gladiator mounts, but some of the other rewards will be sort of more spread among the content or more spread among the rating bands.
All right. I think that's it from me. Ven or Gerissar, do you have any follow-up questions?
Actually, I had one question, and I maybe should know this. I don't know if this is information that's released yet, but is the regular rated Battleground format staying, or is like the new Battleground Blitz replacing it?
Good question. So we have no plans of deprecating rated Battlegrounds for the War Within launch. We're really excited for RBG Blitz. However, we fully understand that there's a ton of players and communities out there that still love and enjoy rated Battlegrounds. So as of right now, they're going to exist side by side. So no plan of deprecating rated Battlegrounds.
Cool.
I'm a little concerned about that because I know, looking at what happened when Solo Shuffle went rated, Dragonflight Season 1, RSS was extremely successful, but the threes ladder saw a big hit of participation, which then affected MMR and a bunch of other issues. I'm more than a little, and this is voicing also from a bunch of community people, very concerned about what's going to happen to the rated Battleground ladder, which is already a very small community, and what's going to happen when the number of people who can now just solo queue up or dual queue up, and what's going to happen to that rated 10v10 ladder, especially with no new seasonal title. Like, it's the same hero title, no new rewards, nothing to make people actually still want to play that other than the people that are diehard 10v10 pre-mades.
It's a really valid concern. I mean, I will say that our goal is for players to continue to play both. However, with the inclusion of RBG Blitz, we know that a lot of players just prefer solo queue activities, and that's the way they want to consume PvP content. Like you mentioned, with the success of Rated Solo Shuffle, we've certainly seen that. But at the same time, there's players that don't want to do solo queue content, want to play with their friends or guildies or communities, and it's really on us to sort of make sure both of those avenues exist, which is why I mentioned we're keeping Rated Battlegrounds for the War Within launch. In terms of how we're going to tackle it, it's really going to be an ongoing effort. I'm really happy that we're making a new Battleground, because when we make new Battlegrounds, they go to a lot of different features like RBG Blitz and Rated Battlegrounds, and I'm hoping that with our continued sort of efforts to make more Battlegrounds and more arenas, we can sort of keep both buckets of communities happy. But the concern that you mentioned is definitely top of mind for us and something that we discuss. I think a lot of it's going to depend on how RBG Blitz plays out and player reception to it, but until we sort of have it go live and check it out and see how people react, it's hard to really say anything specific there.
Okay. I'm a little worried that a massive amount of participation is indicative of people liking it rather than, because just with RSS, there's a number of people that enjoy threes more, but they can't find teammates or anything. So they just end up queuing RSS because that's where everybody is, right? And so it looks like there's a lot of people that are liking it, whereas it's just the thing to do. So
that's a good point as well. Yeah.
All right. I think that's about it for any follow-ups I actually have. I really appreciate your time, George. Actually, Elliot, Venruki, any parting shots that you want to throw in there?
No, I just want to say thanks so much for meeting with us and talking with us. It's been a pleasure, and I really appreciate your time.
Super fun to do.
As a fellow healer, I appreciate this opportunity. Healers rock. We deserve respect too.
We do, yeah.
We're the hard grinders, the PvP community.
We're the ones that matter. I'm kidding. Everyone else matters, but we're the ones that matter the most. We're the backbone of any group. But yeah, like I said, thank you so much. It was really fun. I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but we're currently planning on having the Deephaul Ravine go to public alpha. I'm not sure when this will go live, but very soon. And following that, when we sort of go later on in the alpha beta cycle, we want to do some community events around both the Deephaul Ravine and RBG Blitz. If you've ever done like a PvP with the Blues, I love doing those. Those are super fun. So yeah, I look forward to that. It should be a fun time.
Will it be available in Wargame on alpha as well, or is it only going to be through the queue system?
It should be available via Wargame, but I'll double check on that.
Okay, thanks. It's easier to get 10 people to Wargame than it is to get 20 people to queue up. So.
I see.
All right. Well, hey, thank you again.
No problem. Thank you.